the glory of ancient Egypt. In the heart of Africa, where the Nile winds its way through the golden sands, lay the most powerful and prosperous empire the world had ever known, ancient Egypt. For millennia, Egypt was a beacon of civilization, a land of towering pyramids, vast temples, and legendary rulers. At its peak, the kingdom seemed invincible, its grandeur unmatched. The world knew Egypt as the cradle of wisdom, culture, and power, a civilization that commanded awe and respect. The pharaohs, god-kings descended from Ra, the sun god, were the lifeblood of Egypt's greatness. They wielded absolute power, their words law, their rule divine. Among them, few were as revered as Ramses II, often called Ramses the Great. His reign lasted for over 60 years, during which he led military campaigns that expanded Egypt's borders and forged alliances that brought prosperity to his people. He built monuments that still stand today, testaments to his glory. The temples of Abu Simbel, carved into the living rock, told stories of triumph and divine favor. In Ramses' time, Egypt was not merely a kingdom, it was an empire. But Egypt's strength was not built solely on its rulers. The Nile, the lifeblood of the land, flooded annually, bringing fertile soil to the fields and ensuring a bountiful harvest. This allowed Egypt to sustain a population of millions and create a flourishing economy. The Egyptians became masters of agriculture, engineering, and mathematics, their advances paving the way for generations to come. The Great Pyramid of Giza, still a marvel today, was a symbol of Egypt's incredible ability to combine science and art. The civilization's legacy was etched in every brick, every inscription, and every artifact. The priests and scribes of Egypt held knowledge that could bend time itself. They chronicled the reigns of the pharaohs, recorded the stars, and calculated the movements of the heavens. Their wisdom gave birth to a society that valued education, innovation, and the preservation of history. Architecture, literature, and medicine all flourished under the watchful eyes of Egypt's scholars. However, no empire remains unchallenged. In the Golden Age of Egypt, whispers of foreign threats began to stir. In the deserts to the east, nomadic tribes gathered, eyeing the riches of Egypt. To the north, the powerful sea peoples approached, a seafaring force that would soon test Egypt's strength. Though Egypt's military was formidable, even the mightiest of empires cannot endure forever. Still, Egypt stood strong, its walls high, its armies unyielding, its culture flourishing. The wealth and knowledge of Egypt were envied by all who came into contact with it. But as history had proven time and again, greatness is a flame that burns brightly, but it does not last forever. And thus, the seeds of Egypt's decline were sown, though no one knew it yet. For now, Egypt basked in the golden light of its imperial glory, unaware of the storm that was brewing just beyond its borders. This is where the story of Egypt's downfall begins. At the height of its power, on the precipice of a change that would forever alter the course of history. The world of Egypt, a world of unimaginable wealth and grandeur, would soon face the challenges that would lead to its undoing. The question was not if it would fall, but when and who would rise to take its place. The first signs of decline. As Egypt basked in its golden age, a subtle shift began to ripple through the empire. Quiet at first, but steadily growing louder. Beneath the shining surface of prosperity, cracks began to appear in the foundation of Egypt's power. The once mighty empire, so proud of its military dominance and wealth, found itself straining under its own weight. The winds of change were stirring, and Egypt was not prepared to face the storm. The first signs of Egypt's decline were felt within its very heart, the royal court. In the years following Ramses II's death, his successors struggled to maintain control over the sprawling empire. Infighting among the elite weakened the once unified leadership. Pharaohs, once revered as divine beings, now seemed more like mortal rulers, bound by the same frailties that plague the human world. The ruling class, consumed by power struggles and greed, lost sight of the kingdom's needs. The political instability created an atmosphere of mistrust, and the pharaoh's divine mandate began to falter in the eyes of the people. At the same time, Egypt's economy, once the envy of the ancient world, began to crumble. Overexpansion, coupled with poor management, drained the kingdom's resources. Egypt's vast military, stretched thin across borders, struggled to protect its far-flung territories. The once abundant Nile, which had given life to Egypt for centuries, seemed to offer less and less. Famines became more frequent, and the people began to grow restless. The once great nation was no longer as self-sufficient as it had been. The luxury that had once been so common now seemed like a distant memory. Externally, Egypt's enemies began to grow bolder. The Sea Peoples, a mysterious and ruthless group of raiders from the Mediterranean, had been eyeing Egypt's wealth for years. They struck with terrifying speed and brutal force, plundering coastal cities and disrupting trade routes. In a series of bloody conflicts, Egypt's once invincible navy struggled to fend off these invaders. The walls that had protected Egypt for centuries no longer seemed as sturdy, and the fear of invasion crept through the hearts of the people. To the north, the Libyans, once allies of Egypt, now posed a direct threat to its sovereignty. Their powerful chieftains, emboldened by Egypt's weakness, began to push southward, eager to seize Egypt's rich lands. Despite their superior numbers, Egypt's military, worn and fragmented, could not respond with the same swiftness and strength it once had. The empire, once feared by its neighbors, now seemed fragile, vulnerable. Within the halls of power, one figure stood out, Shoshenq, a Libyan general who had risen to prominence in the Egyptian army. Ambitious and cunning, Shoshenq saw the disarray within Egypt as an opportunity to seize power for himself. He maneuvered through the court, quietly gathering support among the disillusioned factions. Egypt's strength, once synonymous with the mighty pharaohs, now seemed to rest in the hands of a foreign-born general who had his own vision of what the kingdom should become. As Egypt teetered on the edge of collapse, the writing was on the wall. The empire's internal rot, combined with external threats, had set the stage for its inevitable downfall. Yet, even in the midst of this turmoil, something greater loomed just beyond the horizon. A new force, waiting in the wings, ready to rise from the ashes of Egypt's decline. This was not the end of Egypt, but the beginning of its transformation. The final chapter of Egypt's imperial glory had yet to be written, and the key to that story lay in the south, in a land that had long been overlooked, Nubia. The rise of the Nubian Kings. While Egypt struggled to hold its ground against foreign invaders and internal unrest, a distant power to the south watched with growing interest. The Kingdom of Kush, located in what is now modern-day Sudan, had long been Egypt's southern neighbor. For centuries, the Nubians, the people of Kush, had existed in Egypt's shadow, their relationship defined by both rivalry and reverence. However, as Egypt's empire began to falter, the Nubians saw an opportunity to rise. In the heart of Kush, a new force was emerging. Pi, the son of the powerful King Kashta, was poised to change the course of history. Pi was not only a military strategist of unparalleled skill, but also a ruler who understood the political landscape of both Kush and Egypt. He had watched the decline of Egypt from the safety of his kingdom, where his people thrived while Egypt's glory faded. For years, Pi had harbored a vision of a united kingdom, where the strength of Kush could be harnessed to bring order and stability to Egypt. Pi's rise was marked by careful planning and an unyielding ambition. He did not seek to conquer Egypt with brute force alone, but rather with a deep understanding of its weaknesses. Unlike Egypt's fragmented rulers, Pi possessed the clarity of purpose that would ultimately carry him to the throne of Egypt itself. As unrest within Egypt's borders continued to grow, Pi saw that the time was ripe. The Egyptian pharaohs were losing their grip on power, unable to defend their lands from both external invaders and internal divisions. With a formidable army at his command, Pi set his sights on Egypt, determined to restore order and assert Kushite dominance. His first move was not an outright invasion, but a calculated military campaign aimed at destabilizing Egypt's already fragile state. He targeted key Egyptian cities, ensuring that his presence was felt while minimizing destruction. His forces swept through Upper Egypt, unchallenged by the weary Egyptian military. Pi's strategy was brilliant. He understood that to conquer Egypt, he must not only defeat its armies, but also win the hearts of its people. As Pi advanced, Egypt's remaining pharaoh, the feeble and disunited Taharqa, watched helplessly from the palace. He had inherited an empire in decline, and his ability to lead was severely compromised by the internal divisions that plagued his court. While Pi's forces pressed forward, Taharqa struggled to command respect from his own soldiers, and the people of Egypt, who once revered their pharaoh as a living god, no longer trusted his leadership. Pi's army soon reached Thebes, the spiritual and political heart of Egypt. It was here that the battle for Egypt's soul would be decided. Despite fierce resistance, Pi's forces stormed the city. But instead of razing it to the ground, Pi offered the city a choice: submit to his rule or face total destruction. The Egyptian elite, unwilling to sacrifice what little power they still had, chose the path of submission. With Thebes under his control, Pi declared himself pharaoh of Egypt. The 25th dynasty was born, and the once great Egyptian empire fell into the hands of the Nubian Kings. Pi's reign marked the beginning of a new era, a time when the mighty pharaohs of Egypt were replaced by the resilient, strategic rulers of Kush. The Nubian Kings would come to rule Egypt for nearly a century, their dynasty bringing both stability and cultural revival to a land in desperate need of it. But as history often proves, even the strongest of foundations can crumble over time. While Pi's rise marked a victory for Kush, the challenges of ruling Egypt would soon prove more complicated than he could have imagined. The stage was set for a new struggle, a battle for the future of Egypt between the lasting legacy of the pharaohs and the emerging might of the Nubian kings. The fall of Egypt and the legacy of Nubia.